Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning and welcome to another lecture of this course Philosophy of Architecture. Today we will have the lecture number 15 and the title of today's lecture is Philosophy of Cities. And in today's lecture we would cover political, mercantile and industrial city. We will see how cities have moved from being agrarian cities to urban centers, and then we will also take a deeper look at the phenomenon of urban concentration. You will be interested to know that now we are moving from a micro conception of architecture to a macro conception of architecture. Micro means we looked at house as a building and we looked at the essence of house itself, essence of building, essence of dwelling and so on. We also in the previous lectures we have seen various principles that govern the construction, the design of a building, of a house, of various built structures and so on. We have also seen the purposes for which these buildings were built. But today onwards and now till the end, which is the 20th lecture, we would look at urban concentrations. We would look at mass aggregation of people and how they have over a period of time, how they used to live and how the changes have happened in their lives, simply because the factors of production and the kind of work that they are engaged in to sustain their life has changed over a period of time. So, whether it is movement from agriculture to trade or trade to industry or industry to technology and so on. And then what are the incidental ramifications of these changes in society, and therefore, in the way that cities are designed, in the way that the buildings in those cities are designed and in the way the incidental structures around the building are designed. So, henceforth we will look at the macro conception of architecture, which includes cities, urban centers, streets, monuments, office spaces and so on. So, now let us move forward, and I would like to show you this snapshot of how the cities have developed. We will go and discuss each one of these in detail, but I would like you to see in one slide and in terms of a timeline how the cities have developed. If you notice carefully, you see in this continuum, in this timeline, it begins with 0 and ends at 100%. Now, what is this 0 and what is 100? 0 is zero urbanization and 100 is complete saturated urbanization. So, that is what this timeline indicates, this arrow indicates that we are moving towards 100 from 0. Now, what is 0? How the cities began? How was the journey of formation of cities, and what are the factors that influenced this movement? As per this timeline, and it is a very brief snapshot, you will see that in this it began with political city and then it moves to mercantile city. From being mercantile, it moves to industrial city and then it reaches a critical zone, and that we will see what that critical zone is, which makes the city take a jump and reach 100% and attain complete saturation of urbanization. So, what really is a political city? If you see Greek polis, now polis, the word polis itself means a city, and moment we think of Greece or Greek polis, we think of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and so on. We also think of Greek gods like Apollo and so on. So, Greek polis is a city state. If you recollect your political science classes, Greek polis is a city state. In fact, it is political state, it is also a city state. So, a city itself is a country, Athens is a country, Sparta is a country. So, Greek polis is actually a city state, a state which is a city. Even today, you will see there are few city states in the world. For example, Singapore. Singapore is a big city, it is also a small country, and similar examples you have across the world, but Singapore is a good example of being a city state. So, it began with political city, which is something like Athens and Sparta, and it started in Greece. Next is mercantile city. Now, what is a mercantile city? From, I mean, if you recollect what happened in a political city, you have a king and or you have a senate which is governing the city state, and in that city state the picture that comes to our mind, especially in Greece, is that of philosophy, of high philosophy and of discussion and debate that happens between enlightened citizens, and you have Socrates sitting at the center and arguing with people as to and making them realize that the beliefs that they are carrying within them are not actually robust and they are not logically argued. So, these are the things, these are the activities that we think about or we are familiar with that happen in a Greek state, which is a Greek polis. And we also know that the reality of slaves and the reality of women being a second class citizen is also a feature of political city. So, this is how we look at the idea of political city that comes to us through Greek state. Now, after political city, what happens is a mercantile city. Now, mercantile city, as we can understand, comes from the word merchant. And what does a merchant do? Merchant sells his wares or he trades its wares. So, and what does he trade in? He trades in goods, not so much services, but still this is about goods. What kind of goods does he trade in? He trades in the goods which are agricultural produce, which are minerals that are taken out of the earth. So, and then in some cases value additions, minor and major value additions. So, a mercantile city became centers of trade, and these centers of trade got converted into cities, which saw concentration of people and farmers and those who are related to agriculture, they flocking to the city to sell and buy items of their requirement, need and trade. So, mercantile city was the second city to be developed after political city or after agricultural city. And then from mercantile to industrial. Now, what does this mean? It means that earlier there were trade. I mean, if you remember, think of Indian cities in India as a country before industrial revolution. So, you look at various centers where East India Company used to do its trade. It will take raw material from India and it will sell at different parts of the world. And then industrial revolution happened, where the power looms came into existence. James Watt created steam engine, and then that steam engine was used in different industries. So, of course, textile became a big industry and many others, and the raw material went from India to England, where it was processed into finished goods, and those finished goods were sold all over the world, including they were sent back to India. So, this mercantile, between mercantile city and industrial city, this transition from agrarian to urban started taking place. So, instead of having simple agrarian commodities to be traded, what started happening was those agrarian commodities were used as raw material, and with the help of machines they were converted into processed material or products that could be sold at a higher price in various markets. So, this created a rupture between agriculture city and a mercantile city and an industrial city. So, in this rupture, the transition of city from agrarian to urban started happening, and in this transition what happened or started happening is migration of a large number of population from villages to cities, because these industrial centers required people in large numbers to work on those machines, and because machines were running 24 hours. So, people had to work in shifts, and which means that a good number of people work during the day and then they go back home, and another set of people come at night. So, such changes, and because a large number of people were engaged in this manufacturing activity and they had to live closer to the factories. So, the structures had to be developed where people can go about living their life and also work in factories through which they can earn and support their lifestyle. So, facilitating social structures such as housing, such as roads, such as the transportation got developed in terms of infrastructure. And then when a large concentration of people are living together, the intercourse between people who are living together, social intercourse, which enabled them to form new relationships and new ways of looking at each other also developed, and because of that something which can be called an industrial city developed. Then as it progressed further, what happened is everything increased in scale, and numbers that were earlier in thousands became in millions, and millions became in tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and the cities started bursting at seams, and they started imploding, and they also started exploding. So, urban concentration reached a very high density, because because of rural exodus. So, people were moving in large numbers from villages to cities. So, they are exiting their villages and coming towards cities. So, concentration is increasing, and then extension of urban fabric means that while city precincts initially were small, but because such a large number of people were moving into cities, the urban fabric was getting extended, because the existing city cannot really contain so many people. So, the urban fabric kept extending at the edges, and what came into existence is suburbs or suburban areas where satellite towns were created and so on. And then gradually we saw a complete subordination of agrarian to the urban. So, you will see many movies, people who live in the city, they are going about their life, and suddenly they see a village folk or a village boy comes into the city, and people who are in the city, they make fun of the ways of a boy or a girl who has come from the village. So, these are the ways in which the sensibilities got defined, and this hierarchy got established, that it is the urban who is superior and it is the rural which is inferior. So, such changes happened in society as a result of the changes in the way factors of production were aligned, the way people started going about doing their daily duties. So, as we can see in this slide, that the whole continuum that began with city being a political city, to a agriculture dominated city, to a mercantile city, and then an industrial city, which after some time exploded with people. So, this is in brief the whole timeline of the life of a city. Now, we will look at each one of these in greater detail to understand what are the ramifications for architecture and for the architects who are dealing with these forces on a daily basis to interpret a way of life which is valid for this period. So, let us move forward. So, Greek polis, as I said, and then the trading cities or mercantile cities are also the oriental cities. So, think of Baghdad, think of Damascus, think of Delhi. These are the cities which are known for being trading cities. Even think of Calcutta before the industrial revolution, that was also a trading city. In fact, at one point of time, Calcutta was called the second most important city in the English Empire after London. So, it was essentially a trading city, and then we have industrial cities which have come up all over the world, which are located either adjacent to a manufacturing hub or a manufacturing plant, or there are many other factors that influence creation and construction of industrial cities. There are also small cities and megalopolis. These are also the terms or the lexicon of cities, how we address them, how we name them, call them, and how we use them in our daily discourse, which is ordinary discourse of laymen and discourse of academia who are studying various subjects related to it, be it sociology or anthropology or in this case architecture. So, small city or small town is a term that we often hear, that he is a small town boy or a small town girl. That is used in a pejorative sense, but what it conveys is perhaps worldview that is limited and that is still rooted to the ground. So, that is small city, and then we also have megalopolis, which means a very, very large city. A very large city means, for example, if you see Delhi NCR in India or MMR, which is Mumbai Metropolitan Region, they are very large regions or very large cities. In fact, the population of Delhi NCR is almost 30 million to 40 million. Similarly, Bombay and MMR, Mumbai Metropolitan Region, will also be about 20 to 30 million. So, this kind of population often is of many countries. In fact, if you go to western countries, many countries may also not have this kind of population, and this is only going to increase, it is not going to reduce. The migration from different parts of the country towards these megalopolis, these major urban centers, is only going to increase. In fact, it is said that concentrations of say Mexico City or Tokyo, even in India, Delhi NCR, etc., are going to have already reached the tune of 50, 60 million, 5 or 6 crores of people living in one city. So, this is going to be the future, it is not going to abate or recede. So, essentially what I am saying is that this is a reality that we will have to live with, grapple with, and find ways and means to make a living and if possible a dwelling. So, let us move forward. So, it began with villages, and what really happened in the beginning, first human groups, we can call them gatherers or fishers or hunters or herders or farmers. What did they do? They marked out and named space. So, if they have settled at a place and if they are doing farming and they are leading a life which is localized and fixed at a place, they marked out the area and they gave a name to it. So, that is how a village or a settlement came about, and they explored it while marking it. So, they saw what was around and so on, and then it was a spatial grid that peasants attached to the soil and later perfected and refined without upsetting the overall fabric. So, what did they really do? The farmers, the hunters and herders and fishermen and gatherers, what did they do? Wherever they settled, they first looked around that what is, I mean, is there a mountain, is there a river, is there a pond, is there a forest, are there animals. So, when they looked around and they marked out the space, they named the space, they said this is mine, and they did all of this without really upsetting the fabric. So, they did not dam the river, they did not change or cover or fill the pond, they did not destroy or cut the forests, they did not drive away the animals. It was more like living side by side along with nature. So, that is how it all began, when the agricultural systems took shape and villages and small towns were established. Agriculture, in fact, it settles into nature. Agriculture is entering the nature and it is remaining there, as if nature is taking agriculture into its lap, agricultural way of life into its lap. Nature is nourishing it, it is settling it, it is sustaining it. It produces according to the laws of physis. Physis means change. So, it produces, so agriculture produces according to the laws of change, which means that you sow a seed and then seed will sprout into a plant, and then plant will grow into maybe a harvest or into a tree, and then it will flower and then it will fruit and so on. So, what agriculture does is it guides nature along, or it goes along with nature, and it does not really force nature into a shape of its choice. All right. So, agriculture goes along with nature and it adjusts itself to be a part of nature. So, this is how the agricultural villages or towns existed, and they remained so for a fairly long period. But then industry came, and with industry what happens is that industry does not go along with nature. In fact, what it does is it captures nature. Okay. So, for example, say a steel industry. Now, steel industry works on iron ore. So, it will be located closer to mines where iron ore is found. It will also be closer to places where coal is found, water is found, and then it appropriates the produce of the earth in terms of minerals, and then it processes them, and in the process what it does is it also exhausts its energies of nature. It exhausts the energies of nature, it rips it apart. So, it rips the nature apart and it grabs hold of its resources and raw material. So, it grabs, it does not remain, it does not let the coal remain in the bed of earth, it does not let iron ore remain inside the earth, it extracts them, it grabs hold of them, it ravages nature to produce things. Ravages means it destroys nature in its original form to produce things that are saleable, that are exchangeable, that are usable, and to produce things that are not in or of nature. So, what industry produces are not the things that are of nature, are not the things that are in nature. So, for example, a steel company produces steel. Now, steel is not nature. With steel, what do? You create objects like say fridge, like car, and so on. So, it is not producing objects which are related to nature, it is something very different. An industry is not subject to any given place, but still depends on place. So, what it means that the industry initially at least used to be that industries will be located closer to the place of raw material. So, where there is coal, iron, mines and so on, that is where it will. If it is a textile mill, then it will be closer to place where cotton is grown, and that is why say a place like Ahmedabad, which was called Manchester of East, where abundance of cotton was available in that area. So, but gradually it did not really matter, because what they did was that they were able to shift wherever they felt that it was economic to shift. Being closer to the sources of raw material, source of labor did not remain so important. What became important was being closer to a city where large number of people are available, capital is available, capitalists are available, and so on. So, although it tends to occupy the entirety of a territory, it does so only by combining a number of dispersed fragments, companies through the market. So, in an industrial city, it occupies the entirety. So, wherever it is located, it kind of grabs hold, it kind of overwhelms the territory, and it does by combining large number of factors. So, whether it is the whole chain of vendors or ancillary units, because a company cannot produce everything. So, a few things are produced by someone else, its vendors, and that is used as intermediate material for production of final goods. So, and chain of intermediaries also will mean related to labor, related to material, related to technology, related to capital. So, all of them are, they exist in different fragments, but an industrial city brings them together through the market. It must also be noticed or realized that city is not just consumption, but also production. So, if you recall, agricultural city or even mercantile city is largely about consumption and trading. You buy for what? You buy to consume, all right, but not so much of production. Only in agriculture there will be production, but that is not really called production, that is more of farming or growing. But in industrial city, there is also production of goods and services. Because of that, what happens is a city, especially industrial city, it creates situations where different things happen after one another. So, in a city, when you are living in a city, you will see that many things are happening simultaneously, and each one of them are very different from one another. Okay. In a few activities you will see there is a sequence. In many activity you will see there are no sequence, they are very different. So, in a city you will see poetry, you will also see stock market. In a city you will see sports, you will also see music. So, they are very different forms of human life that are happening simultaneously inside a city. So, you will also see that they are arranged in a certain way inside a city, and things do not exist separately, but they exist according to differences. So, for example, you will have poor people living together, richer people living together, people work of following a particular profession living together, and so on. So, they are ordered or ordered spatially as per their differences, all right, without being concerned. So, you will see that city is not really concerned about this difference, it is indifferent to this difference. So, that is why you will see that people who come to the city, they feel lost, they feel that city is very cruel, it is tough to live in a city. Often we talk about Bombay, where people have to travel long distances in trains, trains which are overcrowded trains. They have to travel long distances, spend 1, 2, 3 hours to reach their place of work. So, they say that the city is cruel, city does not have sympathy or does not appreciate the difficulties that people go through while being there. And here I also wanted to mention one film, those of you who have heard about it and not watched, you must watch. It is the last movie or film made by Satyajit Ray. Name of the movie is Agantuk. And in this movie, I want to integrate towards the cruelty that a city bred people may have. And I very briefly I will give the story. You can see in the center in red kurta, Utpal Dutt seated, and to the right of him there is a man, and to the left of him is a woman who is sitting with sitar. So, what happens is this family, this lady and her husband, they get a letter from supposed uncle of theirs saying that he is coming to Calcutta and he will spend some time with them. Now, they are very scared that who is this uncle, we have heard about this uncle, but we have never really seen them, or we have not, and they are not sure whether they should welcome the uncle in the house, and is he actually a fraud or is he really an uncle. So, this lady who is his niece, this uncle is Utpal Dutt, and she is not sure what to do. Her husband in fact is not in favor of the uncle coming and staying at home, whereas she is little hesitant, and she says that he is my uncle, how can we say no. And generally those days letters used to reach late. So, letters reached late, and the day the letter reached, that very day the uncle also arrived. So, they did not really have a choice, and then the uncle comes and he stays in the house, and you know they are very uncomfortable with this uncle, even though uncle is very good, he is very warm and he has brought gifts for them. Yet they are very uncomfortable, they are not sure whether he is the right man, he should not steal all their belongings and run away. So, you know, at one point, and this uncle is a very knowledgeable man, and he has worked in the field of anthropology, he has gone around the world, etc., etc. And then, you know, at one point of time on one day, what they do is they call a lawyer friend of theirs, the person who is seated next to Utpal Dutt is a lawyer. And they say that you do an inquiry as to whether he is a real uncle and what he is talking is legitimate and is original and is credible. So, that is what is going on that we see in this scene, and what happens at the end of this scene is that he feels hurt that there was an inquiry conducted, and next day morning he disappears. So, what I am trying to say is that city is cruel, and it takes us away from the natural human emotions of affection and respect and so on. So, this cruelty becomes a character of a city. Let us move forward. What we saw is a decline of agricultural cities. In the beginning of human civilization, there was more of agriculture, and then gradually it moved towards mercantile and industry and so on. So, this decline of agricultural cities happened, and happened very rapidly. In this picture you see a picture of any ordinary town in India, which is largely dependent on agriculture. So, this is the kind of scene we will see in most Indian small towns, or towns that are work around agriculture as the primary source of income. Agricultural production loses autonomy and is associated with only underdevelopment. So, today when you think of agriculture based towns and cities, villages where agriculture takes place, what happens is you realize that they do not really are autonomous. They cannot make their own decisions. They are enormously dependent on government and government grant and government subsidies and government purchases of their produce. And now there is also incursion of corporates who are getting into agriculture, so that the people who are doing farming, they actually become employees and they get an assured income, and it is the company which takes away the surplus and profit. So today agriculture related settlements, they are associated more with underdevelopment and more with loss of autonomy, rather than a place where people are happy to dwell. Then we have also seen this earlier, urban fabric extends its borders and corrodes the residue of agrarian life. So because the cities are coming up and cities are very, very large, so now cities will encroach upon the adjoining settlements, and these adjoining settlements, as the cities start growing and growing fast and growing big, they start encroaching upon the agrarian settlements, and therefore urban fabric is extending its borders and encroaching and capturing the agrarian settlements, small towns, villages, and what it is also doing is corroding the residue of agrarian life. Now, what is agrarian life? People who live in villages, they live in a certain way, because the numbers are small, because they are connected to the soil, because their profession is related to sowing seed and watching it grow, and then growing into a plant, growing into a fruit, growing into grains and so on. So, there is an element of time and there is an element of soil in agrarian life, and that happens slowly. It does not happen very fast. There is not much of movement on a daily basis. Because of that, the nature of life of people who are settled in those areas is also slow, is also related to what is happening in the soil. So, this way of life where it is settled, it is slow, it is more into the growth and more into I mean allow things to happen rather than forcing things to happen. So, in such a, when the settlements have such a character and when they are encroached upon by industrial townships or industrial cities, it destroys this way of life, and whatever little remains over a period of time, that also get corroded and it is incorporated into the industrial way of life, which is nothing but input and output, and that happens in a very rapid manner. So, a machine is running, and as you enter insert raw material from one side, and after processing it could take maybe a few minutes or a few hours or a few days, and it comes out as a complete or a finished product. So, that way of life starts dominating and rural way of life starts corroding. So, that is what happens, erosion of peasant life and decline of village life and agricultural towns. So, agricultural towns, first these villages are getting incorporated in industrial life and agricultural towns. So, today when we look at the urban sprawl or even the country sprawl, what we see is that there are some small towns which are far away from industrial cities, where cities have not been able to reach. So, they have become a small agricultural towns, which are often made fun of in various cultural settings and movies. So, that is how things have developed, where the corrosion of rural and agricultural life has happened, and industrial city has come up in its place. In India, I mean, no discussion on village life and movement of village life towards industrial life is complete without a discussion of Gandhiji's interventions. And you know, Gandhiji played a major role in not only India's political freedom movement, but also the kind of social changes he brought about in the country. So, India resisted urbanization. I mean, you can call it willingly or it just happened, but the urbanization was late to arrive in India, and post 1991, when the reforms happened and global companies were invited inside India, the Indian economy was liberalized, private players were given freer hand, and globalization also started happening. So, only after 1991 this rapid urbanization gathered pace, and today we see it is a complete or near complete urban trend or urbanization of even villages. So, India resisted urbanization for a long period, almost till 1991, and therefore, the village life or the rural life remains an important element in India's culture and Indian way of life. Several freedom movements, especially led by Gandhiji, and then the kind of impact it had and the way it inspired people in the villages, that glorified village life, glorified or celebrated what is happening in the village. In fact, it even valorized the way people in villages responded to Gandhiji's call, various calls, whether it was Dandi March or it was Quit India and so on. So, all of that delayed urbanization in India, and one major movement that prevented or that delayed urbanization in India was Khadi movement. So, Gandhiji insisted on Khadi. He introduced this charkha and encouraged women and people in the villages and towns to weave charkha, and it became so widespread that, and it was so well related to Indian way of life and so on. So, because of that, the village life stood its ground and it did not yield to rapid urbanization or industrialization. You must also understand that Gandhiji did not believe in Western individualism, and in fact, the way Western idea of civilization moves, it considers individual or human being at the center, individual as the unit of democracy, and structure all the units that support or facilitate his growth for the cause or for the benefit of the individual. So, that is why you see rights of man as a document in America. That is why you see how the Western civilization has structured itself with human being at the center, and all the laws serve the end of the individual. Whereas, Gandhiji said that no, keeping individual at the center will only encourage selfishness, and it will not make us a community. In fact, what he proposed was, it was a village that should be unit of a democracy. It was and that village should be self sustained, and all the activities in the village should be for the village and for the people in that village. So, this way what happened was, village life received a kind of not just legitimacy, but glorification at the hands of Gandhiji and his thoughts and his movements. Because of that also, even today village life in India remains a valued life. So, even in say urban centers, even though people may make fun of village life, but deep down they understand that there is a relationship of village life to something deep and something very fundamental that cannot be denied, and that is why village life, the residue of village life in India is not as corroded as it is in many Western countries or Western civilization. There is another element which made this resistance to urbanization strong, that was various literary works which had very strong rural characters. So, old and agrarian civilization and explosion in large cities because of globalization was delayed because of these factors. One particular work I would like to mention is Kanthapura by author Raja Rao. This is a great novel, and it talks about how individuals or people in a village, how they are inspired by Gandhian ideas, and how Gandhian struggle, particularly the Dandi March and Salt Satyagraha, how this is located or situated at that time when Dandi March was happening and Gandhiji was successful in making salt, and how he was resisting British laws. So, that was the time when this story is contextualized, and it has characters. The chief character is Murthy, who is inspired by Gandhian thought, and then he manages to inspire people in the village, particularly Rangamma, who leads the struggle in the village, despite various characters in the village who are supporting the police and who are acting as informers and so on. So, a story like this, a novel like this, which not only won several awards, but it caused a great impact in society, and it glorified how it is the village folk or the people in the villages who understood Gandhiji's call, and they went on to sacrifice, make some great sacrifices for the cause of the nation. So, these movements or these interventions in society, in literature, in history, ensured in some sense that the complete urbanization, the cruelty of urban centers is resisted in India, and the village life is preserved even today. You might recollect, if you have watched the serial by Shyam Benegal, which was telecast on Doordarshan, called Bharat Ek Khoj, or which was based on Discovery of India by Jawaharlal Nehru. In that serial, 1 or 2 episodes were dedicated to this novel Kanthapura by Raja Rao, and in that episode, Shabana Azmi, the actress, played the role of Rangamma. So, it made a profound impact on Indian people, and not only Gandhian way of living, but also literary outputs that were based on works of Gandhiji and related individuals. So, what happens is, as we transition from agriculture to industry, what we encounter is fetishism of nature. A fetishism of nature means what? We value nature not for what its essence is, but for what it appears. So, appearance is sufficient, and we do not really have to go into the essence of it, what really it stands for. Only its so as long as it looks natural, it is enough. We do not have to go beyond it. It is all very appearance centric and superficial. So, nature, as nature is subjected to unprecedented ravages, transition to urbanization brings a further shrinkage of nature, while the signs of nature by contrast proliferate. So, this means that nature is being destroyed, or for example, forests are being cut, trees are being cut, forests are reduced to either real estate spaces where buildings are constructed, or they are reduced to farming spaces, and say plateaus and mountains are being flattened, so that it can be used for human civilization. So, because of all this, what happens is nature is destroyed, nature shrinks, and when the nature starts shrinking, the symbols of nature start proliferating. So, I do not have a forest, but I have a picture of a forest in my drawing room, or inside my house I create a replica of a forest in my garden. So, they are forest, but they are not really forest. they are only the sign of nature. So that is what happened, and parodic reproduction of nature as denatured spaces. So, for example, parks and garden. So, you feel as if you are coming to a place which is related to nature, but they are not really nature, they are manicured spaces, they are gardens, they are parks, they are maintained by human beings, they are not maintained by nature. Also, images of femininity, which means nature is considered to be mother, nature is considered to be feminine, because it nurtures, it nourishes. And so, nature is not important, but the image of nature. So, mother nature is not important, but image of mother is important. So, images of feminine identity proliferate everywhere, you see feminine ideals being talked about, but nature itself is being ravaged, destroyed and so on. Making of nature represents a cause for lament. So, you can't really make nature, but what starts happening in industrial city is nature is being manufactured. So, we manufacture nature, we manufacture park and garden, we manufacture forests, we manufacture things that represent nature. And because of this superficiality, because of this manufacturing element of nature, what happens is this environment movement. Now, we are seeing degradation of climate and climate change. So, while we do have romanticism that we have to protect nature, we have to protect mother earth, we have to protect our seas and mountains and so on and forests, but they are only talk, nothing really happens on the ground, and everybody looks at it with cool indifference. So, they are indifferent to these environmental concerns. One important point I wanted to mention when it comes to mercantile city and industrial city was ideas of city like Jamshedpur. So, while Jamshedpur is an industrial city, it is closer to energy, raw material and labor sources, and gradually move towards city in search of capital. So, when Jamshedpur, which is known for Tata's steel plant, and it was set up in this area called Sakchi and Kalimati, it was set or established closer to raw material and labor sources and energy. But what happened was, this is one of the few examples that are still existing. As we have proceeded, such industrial cities have moved towards the cities where capital and capitalists live, and not really towards the sources of energy and labor. So, when a mercantile city becomes an industrial city, what happens is the volume of exchange. So, in a mercantile city, what happens? The volume of trade is happening, but when it becomes an industrial city, that volume suddenly becomes enormously high, it increases multiple times. And mercantile city was grafted onto the political city or an agricultural city. Agriculture did not resist, agriculture resisted. It did not like that instead of having a slow life, you are having traders and merchants coming into the city and changing the value system of the city. So, just the way agricultural towns and cities resisted the growth of mercantile city, mercantile city also resisted the growth of industrial city. So, what happened was that the merchants who were living in the mercantile city, they formed new relationship, they came together and they combined their capital, they became, they corporatized themselves, so that they can fight with the industrial forces that were being unleashed on the mercantile city. So, such elements happened, or such events happened when the movement was growing from agriculture to mercantile, agricultural towns to mercantile city, and mercantile city into industrial city. So, just such resistances were also happening, and in this process, when a combination of industrial city and mercantile city was unfolding, the idea of commercial capital took shape, and that is how in almost all countries you will see there is a commercial capital. For India, for instance, in India, Bombay is the commercial capital. For instance, in say America, New York is the commercial capital. In England, London is a financial or the commercial capital. It is also political capital, but it is also the commercial capital. So, this idea of commercial capital is a gift from the idea, a combination of the idea of mercantile city and industrial city. We will continue looking at this development of mercantile city, industrial city into other forms of cities as urban centers, urban concentrations, and how it has shaped different ways of life, the new struggles that have come in the life of people who live in these cities in subsequent lectures. So, today as you have seen, we have started this section on philosophy of city, and we have seen that how cities have moved from being an agriculture town to a mercantile city, from a mercantile city to an industrial city, and how at each one of these stages the earlier one has resisted the imposition of the later one, and because of that there is an intermingling of value system, intermingling of ways of life, intermingling of culture, and thereby production of a new way of living life. I will again come back to this slide, which in a snapshot, in one slide, captures this entire movement from political city to mercantile city to industrial city to the critical zone where the explosion of the cities happened and the urbanization was complete. I would also remind you the role that was played by art objects like cinema or like social movements of Gandhiji, which was related to either khadi or related to literature like Raja Rao's Kanthapura. So, these works contributed majorly into the movement as it unfolded in India. Something similar must have happened in other countries as well, but because we are closer to our country and we would like to understand our own country's movement in terms of its urbanization better. So, I have restricted myself to examples from our own country. And since we are discussing philosophy of architecture in the context of cities, you must keep in mind that how these changes from political city to agriculture city to mercantile city and to industrial city, what kind of changes they would make in terms of the requirements of architecture. For example, the kind of house you will build in an industrial city will be very different from the house you will build in a mercantile city. So, industrial city will be for the industries, you need large housing and so on, whereas in a mercantile city you will have only a few rich people for whom you may need big houses, and the rest of them would be dependent on agriculture, who may actually go back to their village life. So, this is what I wanted to say today. We will continue this discussion, philosophy of architecture, particularly with focus on cities, in subsequent lectures. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the lecture today.